So, begin to know yourself as something far greater than the ever-changing, ever-dying aspects that have dominated your picture of who you are. Who am I is then answered with, I am an infinite being who originated not from my parents, but from a source that is itself birthless, deathless, and changeless. Your connection to Source. We have all been created from the same source, and it is my conclusion that we must be like what we came from. It matters not what we call this source. The Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao, is the message in the opening lines of the Tao Te Ching. Call it Tao, call it God, call it Jehovah, call it Divine Mind, it matters not. You are merely interested in recognizing that you originated from the source of all life in a form you know as your constantly changing physical body, which obviously contains the creative energy that you came from. Listen to these words, recorded during a 1967 lecture given by an initiatic science master, Omram Mikhail Ivanov of Bulgaria. Quote, "The Creator has planted within every creature a fragment of himself, a spark, a spirit of the same nature as himself, and thanks to this spirit, every creature can become a creator. And this means that instead of always waiting for their needs to be satisfied by some external source, human beings can work inwardly by means of their thought, their will, and their spirit to obtain the nourishing, healing elements they need. This is why the teaching I bring you is of the spirit, of the Creator, and not of matter." Unquote. I love this quote because it speaks to a part of you that has been largely ignored throughout all of your educational pursuits and accomplishments. The key words here are a fragment of himself, a spark that lies within you, but has largely been left unexamined. This is a great image for you to begin to understand the greatness of your higher self. There is a spark of God within you that is the invisibleness I've been alluding to. It is that which you cannot grasp with the senses. It beats your heart, it grows your hair, and it keeps your lungs breathing in and out. You've become accustomed to taking it for granted while putting the major focus of your life on the physical, that is the unreal part of you. My objective in this chapter and the next is to inspire you to recognize that a spark, a tiny fragment of the creative source of the universe, is located within you, and to help you increase the power of that spark so it becomes the primary force in your everyday life. Review the first chapter and affirm your willingness to change your concept of yourself to help you recognize and increase that spark. Then dedicate yourself to exploring this higher self that I'm talking about. Your higher self is that spark, but a spark is an infinitesimal portion of your physical being. If you weigh, say, 150 pounds, that spark weighs maybe 1/100th of an ounce or 1/1,000,000th of an ounce. This is only a symbolic image because the spark is unchanging. But I'm encouraging you to conceptualize that spark of God inside of you. Imagine it growing to double its size, then a tenfold spark, then maybe a shred, then a segment, then a chunk, then a lump, then a piece, then a section, and just perceive that spark of God as the real you becoming visible through your loving and inviting attentiveness until you feel the sacred presence of your higher self as the guiding light of your life. Ultimately, as I'll talk about later, it will overtake the you that's been dominated by an ego and your sensory apparatus. That former speck of a spark will become the foundation of your life. You might conceptualize this former spark as a sacred light inside of your head that is the same size as your brain. Now you've had a big piece of God to assist you in attaining a status wherein the fulfillment of your wishes becomes a no-brainer, or perhaps you'd call it a new-brainer. This new brain is comprised exclusively of infinite God energy. Your higher self at work every day. I want you to seriously contemplate another observation made by the initiatic spiritual master Omram Mikhail Ivanov in a lecture given in January of 1971. This is a lecture that I've listened to many times. Quote, "Our higher self is perfect, omniscient, and almighty, a fragment of God himself, a pure, transparent, luminous quintessence. This will very likely be a challenge for you as you consider a new concept of yourself by accepting some truths that you have been raised to believe are falsehoods. Yet I ask you to study this ancient spiritual teaching, which is designed to familiarize you with a radical idea about the powers you possess just by the fact that you are a living, breathing human being. If you are committed to accessing your higher consciousness, then you must be willing to do what is required in order to integrate what this great initiatic teacher is offering. In order to accomplish becoming an almighty being, your higher self, that is God, must be enlarged from a spark to a more meaningful portion of your essence. Since you are a piece of God, and therefore have that within you, you needn't doubt your own divinity. As Jesus reminds you in the New Testament, "Is it not written in your law, I have said, you are God's?" That's from the book of John 10:34. As a growing spark of God, you must be willing to say, that portion of myself that has not edged God out, that is ego, must be perfect. It is all-knowing, and it is almighty. There is nothing that this higher self, that I am, cannot accomplish. Once again, let's look back at something Jesus told us. Quote, "With God, all things are possible." That's in the book of Matthew 19:26. All things are possible leaves nothing out. As my teachers in the initiatic sciences frequently reminded me, this higher self, that portion of God that is us, only begins to notice us and give us the attention we crave when we enlarge it from a tiny spark and invite that energy into our life. Your awareness that God isn't something external to you, but rather a portion of yourself, is truly a giant step in your spiritual evolution. You can tell yourself with genuine knowing, I am perfect. All forms of I am have tremendous significance, as you will learn when you listen to the next chapter on your highest self. In this chapter, you are discovering your higher self. God no longer resides outside of you and no longer plays favorites. In short, you've revised humankind's image of a God created in its own egoistic idea of itself. A God who knows how to heal, yet withholds healing from some and offers it to others who are presumed to have paid some kind of dues. A God who is angry. A God who gives humans the pleasure of sexuality, but promises to burn in hell those who don't follow rules devised by other humans. A God who gives us eyes and remains invisible, but threatens damnation for those who don't believe in him. A God who demands to be paid for services with fancy temples and gold-lined costumes for his highest representative. This is a God of the ego. Your higher self is a piece of an all-loving, all-embracing, creative source. All you need do is accept that this is not something external to yourself. It resides within you. The kingdom of heaven is within. In fact, it is you. And all you need do is begin to align yourself with this divine essence. Begin to act like it acts and think like it thinks. And you will begin the process of manifesting just as it does. This is the true essence of living a life in which your wishes are fulfilled, giving your divine nature a chance. The second part of this program provides a step-by-step plan for allowing your higher self to take over the process of fulfilling your desires. In these opening chapters, I hope to jar you into an awareness of how powerful a being you really are when you get past so much of the nonsensical conditioning that has dominated your enculturation. Toss out any self-limiting ideas about your divine nature and what it is capable of achieving. Befriend that spark. Consult it frequently. Nurture it. Pay close attention to it. Believe in it. And practice describing yourself first as a spiritual being, one who lives as frequently as possible from this all-loving, all-giving, all-joyful place called your higher self. Your higher self is just what it says, higher than your false self, higher than your material physical self. It is the part of you that is aligned with your very source of being. In the next chapter, you have the opportunity to consider an even more unlikely assertion in light of all that you've been exposed to since childhood. Not only do you have a lower ego-based false self, as well as a spiritually based higher self that is a piece of God, but you have a highest self, a self that you have been trained to believe is not something that you should ever claim. Your highest self awaits you in Chapter 3, the next chapter. Here are 3 suggestions for implementing the ideas of this chapter. 1. Set aside multiple times during your day to stop and ask yourself this key question. Right now, in what I am about to say or do my desires stem from my lower or my higher self? The ego is all about self-serving, ownership, winning, judging, and so on. The higher self is about serving, loving, and being in a non-judgmental state of peace. Ask yourself this question and create the opportunity to align yourself more fully with God. You then have access to the same powers of manifestation as your source of being. This question, when honestly explored, helps you align with the power to fulfill your wishes and desires. You don't need to abolish your ego animal nature. You do need to keep it tamed, but it isn't allowed to overshadow or destroy your spirit. Give your divine nature a chance by asking yourself this question. Right now, in what I am about to say or do my desires stem from my lower or my higher self? A very important question. Second suggestion. Spend some of your quiet meditation time visualizing a tiny spark of awareness glowing within your being. Practice seeing this God portion of yourself expanding its glow within your mind. See it growing into a personally satisfying size. Continue this expansion exercise, sensing the spark and glow as your God essence. You will begin acting from this inner God-realized image. And the third suggestion, use these affirmations frequently. I am all-knowing. I am all-powerful. I am unlimited. This helps you banish doubt and refer to this portion of yourself that lives in a spiritual world of no restrictions. Simply affirm to yourself without explaining to others or demonstrating pride in what you're doing. You are ridding yourself of ego-dominated mental messages that continue to want to convince you that you are primarily your body and its 5 senses. Chapter 3, Your Highest Self. And here is a display quote from the book of Philippians 2, verses 5 and 6. Quote, "Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus, who, being in the form of God, did not consider it robbery to be equal with God." In the previous chapter, you explored the idea that there's a spark of God within you which you can choose to expand into a consciously larger component of your daily life. This spark is your spiritual essence, your higher self. As your awareness increases that you are a God-realized being, you will welcome it as the central focus of your life. The concept of your higher self will gradually evolve into your highest self, which is truly omniscient, almighty, and capable of producing miracles. Here you will see a new reality, a majestic idea of yourself that previously seemed inconceivable. Your highest self is described in the pronouncement in the display quote that I just read, written by St. Paul in his letters to the Philippians in the New Testament. You move from being a spark or a fragment of God to being able to assert that I am God, and not feel as if you're committing blasphemy or a cardinal sin by such a declaration. Here, the idea that you are equal with God was promoted by Jesus Christ, and you are encouraged by him to let this mind be in you. This isn't the God created by humans, the ego-driven deity who plays favorites and requires ostentatious places of worship, has temper tantrums, demands reparations, and is filled with rage, punishing those who do not do his bidding. Not even close. I am speaking here of the creative source of all being, a God who is responsible for creating the miraculous movement from non-being to being, a God who is formless, who does nothing, yet leaves nothing undone, a God who is everywhere. This is a divine invisible presence that's within you. This idea is at the basis of all great spiritual teaching throughout all time. Much of organized religious teaching proclaims that God is an all-powerful being outside of you. That idea has been thrown at you since you were old enough to process this absurd notion. God, you were told, watches you and punishes you if you misbehave, but listens to your prayers and helps you resolve your conflicts if you do the right thing and please him. Perhaps it is a radical idea for you to declare, I am God, and God is love, or to believe that he who abides in love abides in God and God in him, from the book of 1 John 4:16, is who you actually are. When you are this God, your essence of pure love, it is all you have to give away. And when you realign yourself in this vein, once again quoting Jesus the Christ, quote, with men this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. Now all things are possible leaves out nothing, including your ability to fulfill any and all wishes that are aligned with God. You may find it difficult at first to be able to assert to yourself that I am God, but when you put it into the context of God as love, and pure love allows you to be almighty, all-knowing, and God-realized, you will, I assure you, begin to regain the omnipotence that is your essence from the moment of your transition from non-being or spirit to being, that is human. I emphasize these teachings of Jesus to show that the declaration of I am God is not only not in opposition to the teachings of Christianity or other spiritual practices, but is fully aligned with these earlier teachings. The reason it may seem blasphemous to say that I am God is because we've adopted the God of the ego, created by humans from ego-based ideas of a God that imitates our most unholy human attributes. I've been studying two great spiritual teachers in depth for several years as I prepared to write this book. One of them is U.S. Anderson, and the book of his that I read, studied, meditated upon, and am now living and teaching is titled 3 Magic Words. The book is 323 pages long, and it was not until the last chapter, after many specific meditations and exercises, after many enlightening words on consciousness, intuition, faith, love, success, immortality, and more, and after investing time and energy in what is being taught by the author, that I discovered what the 3 magic words actually are. Here's the beginning of the final chapter titled The Key. Quote, this is the ineffable secret, the ultimate illumination, the key to peace and power. You are God. If you will accept this towering truth, dare to stand atop this magnificent pinnacle, universal consciousness will be revealed to you from within. God is there. It is He who peers from behind your eyes, who is your own consciousness, who is your very self. You are not just a part of God, you are altogether God, and God is altogether you, unquote. This is your highest self. It's indeed a towering assumption, but one, if used in context and alignment with the creative source of all, that is the key to mastering the ability to live a life of your own wishes being fulfilled. After all, with God as you, and you as God, all things are possible. This is not an assertion limited to Western teachings or the Christian faith. In the Vedanta, the ancient pre-Christian teachings, we are reminded that we are not a part of, but identical with, that absolute spirit of the world.
It is so simple, ladies and gentlemen. This idea that is at the core of all of our teachings. I've been out there doing this for over 30 years now. The Erroneous Zones was published 30 years ago. And what I've discovered is what Earl Nightingale told me when I was just getting started in this whole business. When something called the strangest secret. We become what we think about all day long. We become what we think about all day long. But more than that, understanding that your thoughts are real, that they have an impact. Isn't it conceivable that your thought can have an impact on whether or not you can attract what you want into your life? That you can extend it out into a universe which is perfect, which has no need for you to interfere with it, which is always doing exactly what it is supposed to do. No restrictions on it. And it always has been doing it, and it always will be doing it. And everything that you're going through, it's all part of the perfection of all of this. That you are not any of the things that you've come to believe that you are. You're not what you have, you're not what you do, you're not your reputation. You spend a whole lifetime working on understanding that. I'm looking at the things that we believed in the morning of our life. What we were taught, what we were told when we came into this world, what you were told was important for you to do. It's important for you to go to school. It's important for you to get good grades. We throw this stuff at our children. We throw it at ourselves. It's important for you to look a certain way. It's important for you to make the team. It's important for you to defeat somebody else. It's important for you to make a lot of money, to advance in your profession. It's important for you to be a good daughter, to be a good mother, to take care of your family. It's important for you to have goals. It's important for you to figure out what other people are doing and get there ahead of them so that they don't get ahead of you. It's important for you to win. I'm just scratching at the surface here of all of these things that we've been conditioned and told, this is what you're here for, this is what it's about, and you bought into it. You just hook, line, and sinker. We took it. We all did. I did too. We all did. And then you get to a point, and I just share with you this one observation from Jung called the stages of life. He says, thoroughly unprepared, we take the step into the afternoon of life. Worse still, we take this step with the false presupposition that our truths and ideas will serve as hitherto. But we cannot live the afternoon of life according to the program of life's morning. Hear that, really hear that, because most of you here are in the afternoon of your life, and it has nothing to do with how old you are, by the way. This can happen at 14, or some of you stay in the morning of your life for 16 lifetimes. We cannot live the afternoon of life according to the program of life's morning. For what was great in the morning of your life, getting the grades, making the cheerleading team, being a good daughter, getting the gold star, saving your money, getting the job, whatever it is, what was great in the morning will be little at evening. And what in the morning was true, which is a big word here today, what in the morning was true will at evening have become a lie. Now imagine how many of us are attempting to live the afternoon of our life by lies. They just don't work anymore. I mean, is the most important thing for you to get ahead of somebody else, to look a certain way, to have the right jewelry on, to get the job? Or is it to be on purpose? Is it to be making a difference? Is it to understand what I wrote about in 10 Secrets for Success, the second secret? That you're not going to die with your music still in you. Is it to know God? Is it to feel close to something so profoundly important that in here there's a knowing that I haven't been actualizing it, I haven't been fulfilling it? What am I here for? What am I here for? It's a question that you begin to ask yourself when I speak about purpose. And then you say, well, it's to be like God. That's what God realization is, to return to that from which you originated, the place of your source, the Tao. To be the Tao, to be it, to be the great way. And what is the Tao like? What does it look like? What is it doing? It's not doing anything. It's just constantly giving. It's just constantly offering. It's just constantly providing life. Billions and billions of life forms emanating from this invisible source that has always been, just continuously doing it. Why aren't you doing that? Why aren't you being like God? God is love, it says in the book of John. And he that dwelleth in love dwelleth in me. Your objective is to be like God, to return to your source, to your Father, whatever you want to call it. And then we take things like organized religion and we think, well, because I'm going to church and I'm doing the right thing. But you have to remember that the source, that the Tao excludes no one. It excludes no one. It doesn't say you get to breathe and you don't. It does say you get to have hair and you don't. It does those things, right? But it doesn't say you get life and you don't. It says it's for all of you, you're all one. And then we take organizations that say only you get to get in. Only if you believe this way do you get to be part of God. But that's not of God. So any thought that you have that excludes anyone is not a thought of God, it's not a thought of Tao. And that's why the number one source of conflicts on our planet today is about organized religions fighting organized religions. And none of it is of God. Anything that divides us weakens us. Anything. Any thought that you have that divides you from somebody else, that makes you better than somebody else, that says this, any judgmental thought at all like that is not a thought of source. And the minute that you leave source, you lose the power to manifest. You lose the power to attract into your life what you want. You have moved away from source. And any thought that unites us, that includes us, that is of service, any thought of spirit and spirituality that brings us together as one and recognizes the truth that all of us have come from the same source and that we are all breathing the same air and that we all came from the same place. So where does any organization that includes one and excludes other fit on the God realization scale? Way down here. You have to really be careful if you want to live the Tao, if you want to live this thing I'm speaking about and get yourself back into balance, if you want to be in balance, then your habits have to start matching up with your desires in everything that you do. And it's just a simple matter of deciding to do it in all of your thoughts. Every place that you have any thought that is not aligned. Any place, any thought. So here are the thoughts that I'd like you to look at that keep you from the truth of Tao. All right? Every thought that you have that is on what's missing in your life. Every thought that you have about what's missing in your life is an energy that allows you to become a vibrational match to attracting more of what's missing in your life.
Most valuable